All right, everyone, welcome to another episode of Mime Time. We have a very, very dope ass guest today, the dopest of the assest of guests. We have Seibo Shen. Seibo, how are you doing today?
Oh, hell yeah, hell yeah. And I know you weren't using dope in the word or the framing of cannabis, but I am a cannabis fan, so there's a double entendre there for sure.
A double entendre. Yes, indeed. I see what you did there. I see that you saw what I did there when I didn't even see what I was doing there.
We
Yeah,
see each other is what I think.
yes, and I see I see feel hard. Yes. Anyways, for those of you who don't know, I met Sebo Shen through the Badass Asian Dudes Facebook group. And for those of you who don't know, Badass Asian Dudes is an amazing podcast community that was started a few years ago by Chris Kim. Shout out to Chris Kim. And after Chris stepped down, Sebo and Victor and a couple of other bros took over as the community heads, and it's been a thriving community. We're at like 1.6K members now.
Oh wow. Awesome. Awesome. I actually I am no longer part of that community, not for any reason other than I needed to spend time focusing on the things that I needed to focus on. But yeah, I love the Badass Asian Dude. Shout out to Chris Kim. I know you guys are both in Korea. Have you ever met Chris Kim?
Actually, I met him randomly at a party several years ago. And then when I was still in my like party promoting, club promoting heyday, I would invite him to my party. So then he'd come with his friends and we'd have a blast. And we would just hang out from time to time. And he actually told me like over coffee or lunch one day, he said, Mime, you should start your own podcast. So this is when he just started the Badass Asian Dudes podcast. I'm like, well, if he said it, then maybe I should start it. So then that's what happened. And I finally got around starting in early 2020. So, Sabo, would you please tell us a bit about your journey and where you are today? Because when did you step down from Badass Asian Dudes? Because I did notice you weren't as active in the past. What made you
Yeah,
want to chill out?
it's good, great question. So, this is just my own interpretation of badass Asian dudes. And for me, like when I was younger, being a badass was all about achieving, all about like being able to set a goal and accomplish the goal and be able to show that I accomplished goals by purchasing houses, cars, showing my asset portfolio, things of that nature. And for me, like I love to study human psychology, and I stumbled across a developmental psychology model called spiral dynamics. And there's 8 stages of consciousness, and stage 5 is the achiever stage. And most people believe the peak of consciousness is being able to manifest anything you want into reality: a new job, a hot wife, a great family, a car. It's like, actually, that's only stage 5. There's 3 more levels above that. So, what I realized was I've accomplished stage 5. People in Badass Asian Dudes are trying to accomplish stage 5. And the longer I stayed in Badass Asian Dudes, I was keeping my own consciousness from rising. So, I had to step away, work on these other stages. So Badass Asian Dudes really is about empowering yourself. So I'm not saying that this isn't important, because if you don't cultivate the achiever stage, well, you can't really function in society. So after the achiever stage is what they call the relativistic, caring, spiritual stage. So instead of external things making you happy, it's more about your own internal experience. So many burnt out entrepreneurs or many successful entrepreneurs you'll see later in life, they become like more spiritual. Well, that's the path of consciousness. So for me, focusing on achievements and accomplishments was preventing me from living a more spiritual life. And this is why I had to step away from the group so that I could continue growing my consciousness. Because as I said, this isn't like a race to the top of your consciousness, but if you're in an environment where everyone is at a particular stage, you tend to do the same things as the people in your environment. And I needed to be in another environment that would allow my consciousness to continually grow.
That's awesome. I remember we were talking about self-actualization, and I shared a link to my podcast with you where I talk about self-actualization, and then I mentioned Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And you told me over a cheeky Facebook voice note that there's actually another phase beyond that, and it's a phase. I took some notes down. It's a phase of society that not a lot of society works in just yet. You know, I mean, who if you had to put a number, probably less than 1% of humanity, and it's like beyond self-actualization. You called it maybe transcendence of self. It's like when you're after you become great at manifesting whatever it is that you want, whether it's like, you know, something material or shallow or whatever ambition you have, whether it's like cars or money or girls, you know, what have you, vacations all over the world. But after you or making some kind of great impact in a business or like an art or something, what's the next stage? And you said it's allowing the universe to flow through you to be a vessel for whatever the universe wants to create, not necessarily what you as an ego wants to create. So, and you said this is about surrender. And so I think that's fascinating because I've heard of this idea for years now. And that's where I want to go, you know, and I don't know if that's like a limited paradigm. Is you said it's not a race to the higher consciousness, but sometimes I feel that way. Sometimes like, oh, I objectively would like to be in the position where you are now. But I also know, and I think this is why I want to have this conversation with you. I think there are a lot of other people on me where we're on their hustle, we're on the grind, like 20, not exaggerating, 16 to 20-hour work days where we just get a few hours of sleep each night. That's kind of where I am right now. And then it's like, not every day, but it gets like that. But then it's like, okay, well, what am I doing all this for? It's so maybe I can be like Seibo someday. And it's like, oh, if I want to be at this place where like I'm, you know, at a higher level of consciousness after I've manifested myself, then I'll realize, oh, well, you know what? I had what it takes all along, and I actually didn't need anything, but I had to kind of go through that thing. So then why don't I just kind of cheat and in a sense, and just keep that in mind in the back of my mind, right? As I'm on my hustle, doing my process, why can't I look at someone like Seibo and be like, well, this is part of my journey and it's going to be okay. Everything's going to take care of itself in the end because I'm becoming the person who I need to become. And when that time comes, when I can just chill on the beach or just chill on a ranch or be in the forest, you know, I can look back at where I am now and just be like, you know what, like I did a good job and everything's cool. I'm at peace with the universe. So why don't I try to have a moment of meditation now, even though I still need to go through my slayer mentality, even though like I'm not in the Chillionaire mindset just yet. So I was wondering if you have some ideas on that.
Oh man, that was such a great little like kind of monologue there. And there's so much to unpack there. So you're absolutely right. You know, like understanding that there's higher levels, you know, that's perfectly okay, you know. But what the concepts that came to me is, to me, when I look at like coaching programs or spirituality, you know, I like to break it up into waking up and growing up. And what I mean by waking up is like sometimes like you just have like this insight and you realize, oh, wow, like, oh, it's not all about material acquisition. There's more to the world. And then, so just waking up to it is great. But if you don't grow up and build the skills that are necessary in order to live this lifestyle. So what I talk about, this Chillionaire spiritual lifestyle, it is built on top of the achiever lifestyle. Why? We'll go into spiritual retreats, silent retreats, ayahuasca plant medicine journeys, sound baths, you know, things of that nature. These things are expensive and it's hard to be relaxed when you're always worried about money, right? So this is why the achiever stage comes before the spiritual stage. Now, for many people that bypass the achiever stage and go into the spiritual stage, you know, these are your friends that call you every few months asking to sleep on your couch. You know, they're living their best life. They're following the universe, but you know, they can't pay rent. So, you know, I have friends like this that come around like every 3 months and I let them sleep there and they're like, oh man, I got to go back to the achiever stage, or I got to start adulting. Right. So whether or not like you access the spiritual stage sooner or later, you will always have to go to the spiritual stage because ultimately we want to transcend all of this and surrender, right? So the achiever stage allows you to gain whatever you want through hard work. The spiritual stage will show you, yeah, if you can manifest things, you could get these things also. But the stage above that, the yellow stage, the integrative stage, realizes like, no, all of these things that you're chasing, you know, to make you feel more at peace, to make you feel more purpose driven, to make you feel more fulfilled, you could access these things without doing anything, without manifesting anything. They could come to you. So, and this is kind of a hard concept to understand if you haven't gone through all of these stages. It's kind of like, you know, when you're a virgin and someone describes to you sex, you're like, oh man, I really want to have sex. I know it's good, but you just have no idea how it feels. And maybe you masturbate. Maybe you masturbate and you're like, sex probably feels like this. But then the first time you actually have sex and you feel what like a warm, like slick vagina feels like, you realize, oh, all this stuff that I thought about sex, it wasn't even in the same ballpark of like what it actually is. So when it comes to like manifesting anything and then surrendering and getting what you want, like I know it sounds like goofy stuff to, especially to people in the achiever stage. Most people in the achiever stage listen to me and go, that guy's full of shit. You know, he's full of shit. Then they look at my resume and go, oh shit, this guy's not full of shit. He knows what he's talking about. But yeah, so to answer your question more succinctly is, yeah, you could always have your eyes on the prize of a higher stage, but you need to grow up before you wake up to the next stage. And maybe the best analogy I could use is, you know, I don't know what your demographic is, but I'm assuming it's a bunch of guys. So if it's a bunch of guys, you know, they'll really resonate with this. So I call it the video game analogy, which is when you play a video game, are you just trying to pass the level as quickly as possible to go to the next stage? Or are you playing to just have fun? And so what happens if you just try to pass the level and get to the next stage as quickly as possible? You don't pick up all the power-ups. You don't get all like those like things that recharge your health. You don't learn like all the pattern repetition of all the different things that you kill. So when you get to the final boss, it's like really hard to beat the boss if you just rush through. So when it comes to consciousness, it's not about going through the stages as quickly as possible. It's about going through them as thoroughly as possible. So when you get to the next stage, you have like the stronger weapons, you have more health, you have the proper foundation to be able to play that next stage. And if you bypass a stage, like if you skip the achiever stage and you try to get to the spiritual stage, you know, this is probably where like most people have a problem with America right now is a lot of young people have skipped the achiever stage, went to the green stage. So they want to cancel people for using the wrong pronoun. They want to burn down institutions because they feel like this world is unjust. And it's because they've never achieved anything in their life. They don't know how real life works. So they just think, oh, cancel that person. He hurt my feelings, or burn down that institution because they did one thing bad. And it's because they only think this way because they don't have any access to the achiever stage and truly understanding what it means to be able to make change in the 3D world.
Yeah. And I love the analogy of, you know, like, are you trying to like beat this level as fast as you can to get to the next stage? Because I feel like I am somewhere in the middle where I want to get to the next stage. Obviously, I want to push my limits, and I feel like I'm 30 now. I'm going to turn 30 later this year. So I feel like that the clock is ticking for me. And I do feel like this sense of urgency that, oh, like the things that I know now or the things that I'm capable of now, I should have been this 5-10 years ago. I should have, you know, started copywriting 5 years ago. I should have, I feel held back my whole life because I didn't know my own mother tongue despite growing with my Korean parents. And so for me, I let that be such a mental block, such a huge element in my inferiority complex growing up. I feel so held back in life, Seibo. So I feel like everything, I should be 10 times more than what I am now. So I feel this pressure to do my best and to learn and like accumulate and absorb knowledge as fast as humanly possible. So I feel that pressure in this crazy 21st century global modern society and living in Korea, which is very pali, very hurry culture. So I feel that very intensely. And at the same time, I don't want to be stuck in that level of consciousness. I also want to take daily 30-minute visualization sessions where I manifest a future where I don't have to be like this all the time, where I'm appreciating life and stopping to smell the roses and all that stuff. And I'm also visualizing that maybe one day, finally, I'll stop being a virgin and I'll know what it's like to have real sex. I'm just kidding.
Oh man, I was like, whoa. But oh man, like I love talking to you, man. I love talking to you because man, you are like hyper self-aware of everything you're going through. It's fucking dope, dude. It's fucking dope. So the way I would answer that is like, look, okay, I often talk about something it's called the standardization covenant. Like there's a roadmap. The standardization covenant is like there's a roadmap to a good life. Get good grades, go to a good college, get a great job. By the time you're 30, meet the girl of your dreams. Hopefully start having a family by your mid 30s. Have the house, start saving up, start having assets. So by the time you're 65, everything is perfect, right? So these standards, these timelines, they're not based on anyone in real life. It's kind of just based on averages and statistics and things of that nature. But we all know that humans aren't average in any way. Like if you live in America like me, you'll quickly understand that like some people view the world in a specific way and other people view it in a completely different way. And so when you're trying to cram everything into one standard model of the way people live, well, this is why even when you hit your goals, you're not happy. Why? Because it wasn't your standards. Now, time is another one of those things that like many people believe like I should be doing this by this time. I should have this by this time. And these are all the things that actually get in the way of you accessing your higher self. So I often talk about your higher self and your lower self. And what is your lower self? Well, your lower self is concerned with reducing suffering and maximizing pleasure in your life. So basically badass Asian dude stuff, less suffering, more pleasure. Your
Yeah.
higher self is concerned with long-term fulfillment. So you will suffer more in the short term or give up pleasure in the short term if it means a longer, more purposeful, fulfilling life. And so, what I'm saying here is when you're living to other people's standards or you're like trying to hit a timeline, like it is hard to access your higher self. It's always like fulfilling your lower self's base desires. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that because we are biological creatures. And so for me, like I have hit many of my goals and I understand that like goals don't make me happy, and I sacrificed so much of my life and humanity to hit goals that didn't make me happy. Now I've started doing another lifestyle, which is be happy first and then kind of hit your goals as a byproduct of being happy first. And people will say, Seibo, that sounds very unpredictable. That sounds like you may or may not hit your goals. And I go, well, have you hit all your goals? And they say no. And I go, what method did you use? And they're like, I set goals. So basically, between these two methodologies, hitting your goals isn't guaranteed. But what's guaranteed is in the goal-oriented or standardization model is you'll definitely be stressed out. You'll definitely be anxious. You'll definitely always be wondering, am I doing enough? Am I like getting in at the right time? Oh, NFTs, this, blockchain, that. It's like all this stuff, always feeding your lower self and never accessing your higher self. So for me, really just understanding what does Seibo want? What does Mime want? Irregardless of society's standards, if you just follow those breadcrumbs, you will become a Chillionaire. So one thing I like is Chris said, just start a podcast. And you're like, okay, I'll start a podcast. There was something within you that was like, this is the right way. Now, I also believe all these different things that you try, some work, some don't work. These are all the things that your consciousness needs to experience because in my world, you either win or you learn. When you win, you don't learn. When you don't win, you don't lose, you learn. So to me, I feel like I've been one of the biggest learners because yeah, I've had some great things happen, but I've put myself in so many situations where people would say, Seibo, you took a L. But in my world, it was no, I learned a lesson, like all the businesses that failed for me, this is why I could be a great business consultant. If my businesses didn't fail, I wouldn't understand how to consult someone to get out of these failures. So to me, experience is just an experience. And the more experiences you have, the better you could craft and create and architect, the type of dream life that you want. And for me, the dream life was being a Chillionaire, which is basically being able to do whatever I want. And that my standard of living doesn't lower because of that.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, to look at it one way, you did take an L. You took a lesson. The L stands for lesson. So the goal in life is to take as many L's as possible, so then you can become a Chillionaire. All the L's in Chillionaire. Those are all the L's, all the lessons you had to, literally all the lessons you have to become a Chillionaire is you got to take all the L's. You see what I did there?
Oh, I may add an extra L into Chillionaire now. There may be 3 L's, and I'll owe you for that one, man.
Yeah, yeah, for the extra L, I gave you a cheeky L, mate. So I think that's amazing. So I'm curious about. I always love asking my friends about like their businesses and their failures and their successes. So how many exits have you made up until this point?
I've been a part of 5 companies that have had successful exits. So I've had firsthand kind of experience, firsthand experience with people that went from, not having anything in their bank to having 7, 8, or 9 figures in the bank. And what I could tell you is that everyone is happy for maybe a week, maybe a month, but humans in general habituate to everything very quickly. Like I'm sure that at first Korea was kind of weird, but you habituated to it. I know that the first time I got a really expensive suite in Vegas that was 1,700 square feet, like the first 2 days, I was like blown away by it. By the third day, it just seemed normal. Also, when I visited third world countries, the first few days, I was like, man, I don't know if I could adjust to this. But after a few days, it was easy to adjust. So, I've just seen so many patterns in my life that if you look at extrinsic things to make you feel a certain way, they may make you feel that way temporarily, but you will habituate to that. And then ultimately, you're just left with yourself again. So for me, it's never about anything outside making me feel a certain way. It's about knowing myself, feeling whole and complete, and then just doing whatever I want and manipulating reality from that frame of mind.
That's awesome. And as much as you're trying to accelerate from the lowly superficial material realities of this world, I wanna ask, like, what was the first company that you exited, and what was that
Yeah,
experience like? How old were you?
yep. So the first company that I exited, it was a company called Jigsaw. They later became data.com. Salesforce renamed them data.com. The company sold for 161 million. So this was back in 2013, I think, maybe 2012. I can't remember exactly. So, that time that was a pretty impressive number. Today, I think it's, people would be like, that's a decent number, but yeah, since it was my very first time, I went from someone that was paying rent, like month to month, to someone that, all of a sudden had like more money than I knew what to do with, So much like many people who didn't have money that all of a sudden had money, I treated my friends to everything. I bought a bunch of stuff and I lost all the money too.
Oh, like how did you lose the money? Did you just get like overzealous, like I can afford the world, and then it just went like that?
Yeah, yeah. So, when I talk about like coming from a place of lack, and the scarcity mindset is, it's like, hey, all my friends like know I exited. All my friends feel like I'm a hot shot. So, in order to still feel like a hot shot, I pay for everyone's dinners, I pay for everyone's drinks. Oh, all the weed, all the mollies, whatever. I buy it all. Oh, you guys need to Uber, fuck that. Let's go get some limos, and just trying to, in my opinion, being very generous. But in retrospect, I realized it was like I was so insecure about like who I was in the world, is that like
uh
I would use this as a way to really try and validate like I'm worthy, I'm worth something.
wow, that is deep. At what point, like, man, I got so many questions. Like, at what point did you look back on that and then say, like, you know what, I thought I was being generous, which is like, I think that's so fucking human. Like, that's like, I would experience this because I like to think I'm a generous person, like buying a friend coffee or a meal or whatever. Like, I like to think that I'm a generous person, but um because I think that too, like, oh, if I exited from a company, or if I have millions of dollars, then I would want to do that. Like, fuck it, I will fly like, 5 of my best friends from around the world just so we can meet and have a vacation, and like I'll pay for everything if I can afford it. Like, there's part of me that wants that, but also I know, like, oh, is that because well, I would be doing it from a place of insecurity because I want my friends to really like me, so I think it's so human. We all want to be generous, but then we also want to be liked, and some of that comes from insecurity. So it's, at what point, looking back, did you realize that was coming from insecurity or the desire to keep up the hotshot appearance?
Yeah, yeah, a really great question. So I like to use this exercise, which is like, I think it's called the 7 questions of why, which is you ask a question like, why are you a CEO? And then I'll say, because I'm passionate about cannabis and normalizing and breaking the stigma. Okay, why is that important to you? Okay, well, that's important to me because as an Asian American immigrant, people thought about us in a certain way, and I didn't want them to misunderstand that. Okay, why is that important to you? Okay, well, man, all I do is see my parents work hard. They're working hard to just make a living. Then I see other people calling them ching chongs, and that makes me mad. Okay, so why is that important to you? Okay, well, my parents sacrificed so much to come to America. They're contributing this to the society, and yeah, I just don't want them to feel like they don't belong. Okay, why is that important to you? And then I will say, okay, that's important to me because like I don't feel like I belong, and then it's like, okay, now we got to the bottom of it. It's because you don't feel like you belong, not about your parents, not about all these things. And so it's like, whoa, I'm a CEO because I feel like I don't belong. I thought I was a CEO because I'm passionate. I'm a hard worker. I'm going to change the world. And look, I coach burnt out overachievers. And now my view of people that are highly ambitious, that have accomplished a lot, like I still give them a pat on the back, but I know that the higher the ambition, the less complete like they feel. That's why they need to accomplish so much. Now, before people say I'm not going to accomplish anything, you got to go through the achiever stage. You got to accomplish shit in life. If you don't accomplish anything, you can't, like, if I never accomplished anything and I didn't feel like what accomplishing things would do for me, I couldn't transcend that. I would always wonder, what would it be like to start a company? What would it feel like to exit? So I knew I had to go down that path because I was curious about it. But once I achieved that, I didn't need to keep going down that path over and over and over again. Just like once I knew how to make money, like, what's the point of stacking more money, other than to fulfill a certain lack that you feel? So I often tell people, like if you can't manifest money, it's because you give money too much power. You think money will make you feel confident. You think money will make you sexy. You think money will make you feel stable. Well, guess what? All money does is allow you to buy shit. It doesn't make you feel confident. It doesn't make you feel happy. And if it does, it's this fake happiness. It's not coming from internal. So once you don't have money, you don't have any of those powers anymore. So that's what I teach people. Money doesn't have special powers. The second you believe that money has special powers, you will inconvenience yourself. You will hustle till you die in order to get it. Now, when you look at yourself as a scarce resource, then money will inconvenience its way to find you. And that's why I always lead with, like, what do you want to do? What brings you to life? Because if you follow the standardization covenant of like being a doctor, attorney, lawyer, or whatever you think makes a lot of money that will give you stability, when you get that, you won't feel stable. And I've just coached enough people to know, like, it doesn't matter what they say initially. You keep asking those 7 layers of why, it will get down to like, I didn't feel good enough. That's why I accomplished so much.
Yeah, that's so deep. It's like the what do you call it? The pivot or the climax, or like a really deep point you'll see in a movie or something. It's just like, oh, I didn't feel enough. I didn't feel loved enough. Like, for me, I think a lot of what drives my subconscious is like probably my oldest brother. He was just so hard on me, and I'm eternally grateful for him, but I still harbor some resentments towards him. And if he's listening to this, like, I don't care. He knows this, right? He knows that he's hard on me. And like, we're currently not on speaking terms, and I'm okay with that. But I always feel like, oh, I'm not enough, because that's how he always was very hard on me. And so it made me the person who I am today, which is to like become an adult. So if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be who I am today. So I'm eternally grateful. And at the same time, I feel some resentment. Well, like, I'm gonna show my brother wrong, that like I'm not a fuck up and I can get shit done and I can live a successful, happy, prosperous life. And even though like like I might not be enough for him, like I have a great community of friends and people who admire me and respect me for who I am, and I have genuine connections. But I still feel that, right? Because I'm still human and I'm just like, oh, I want the approval of my oldest brother. So I'm still working through that on a day-to-day basis. And I think this is something that's like, it's not something like I can take a pill or a drug and make it just go away. Like it's going to be something that I have to live with and kind of breathe through the pain, right? Meditate upon it and then just keep it in mind as I try to manifest the reality and the future that I want, as I think about the person that I want to be. Do I want to be someone who's always achieving or going through a goal out of a fear or a lack? And the answer ultimately is no, that's not who I want to be. I want to be the best version of myself, and I want to do this podcast, and I want to make tons of money, and I want to become very successful financially, and blah, 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 blah. I want to be like physically fit, not because other kids made fun of me for being a fat, overweight Asian wearing thick glasses and a bowl cut. And I mean, that's fun. If anything, I can look at, oh, it's fun to tell the story. And so I can have some pride and achievement, but not coming from a place of lack. And in the end, not even so I can have like the material or the shallow or say petty. I don't even look at it like a negative way or a demeaning way. It's just like, oh, I'm human. It's okay to want to like look good and then kind of show off a bit. But then even just to get past that point so that people like you and me can coach other people to transcend the hierarchy. Like they don't need to go through the standardization covenant as much. So then I don't know what happens if we raise a plan. What if like people listen, 1,000 dudes or dudettes listen to this conversation, and this kind of sets them on a trajectory where they transcend the manifestation phase, and then they're going through the transcendence phase. What kind of positive or higher consciousness effect would that have on humanity? So that's kind of like where I want to go forward. And yeah.
Oh man, great question. Great question. And yeah, so before I answer that, I just wanted to touch base on what you said about your brother. My dad was very much the same as your brother, like just always pushing me, always pushing me. And, what I realized was like, my dad needed to push me, like I needed that push at that time. I wasn't pushing myself. Now, once I realized how to push myself, did I keep needing my dad to be that person? No. But I also realized like my dad had good intentions, and that's the way that he knew, like the achiever stage is a fairly new stage. It's like a first world country stage. And so many people think that's the epitome. So you asked me, what's the next stage? This transcendent stage, right? So this is my own kind of like philosophy of the way that I looked at life. Is the achiever stage was super important, because if we weren't hyper focused on achievement, like we couldn't invent the internet or the iPad or the iPhone or all these wonderful technology tools that we have today now. But we've also seen what happens when achievement runs rampant. It's progress at all costs. It's if your company's profitable, but you're not making more money this year than last year, you're doing bad, but then when you think about it, it's like, well, if we could pay everyone's paychecks, like, isn't that the whole point that we're working? It's not for this infinite growth, right? So when you stay in this achiever stage, you start coming up with zero-sum policies. Like, basically there's winners and losers and everything. Okay, we're going to go frack here. Okay, some people are going to lose, some people are going to win. And it's always this like, if I achieve, then someone else doesn't achieve. So these higher levels of consciousness, instead of looking at things as hierarchies, as like there's people at the top and there's people at the bottom, you look at them as holarchies. And what are holarchies? Well, it comes from holonic thinking. And what are holons? Well, holons are fully functioning things by themselves that are a part of something larger that's a fully functioning thing. So a cell is a holon to a human. A human is a holon to the planet. The planet is a holon to the galaxy. The galaxy is a holon to, I don't know what's bigger than a galaxy, but if you think about engines, like a sprocket would be like a holon within the engine. A sprocket is a thing that is by itself, but it's also part of a larger engine. So in the achiever stage, everything is looked at as hierarchies. In the spiritual stage, they want to get rid of hierarchies, but they don't really understand holarchies. So holarchies are part of this integrative stage. And so in a holonic system or a holarchy is that you understand, yeah, maybe Seibo is the CEO and he comes up with a strategy, but mid-level managers need to implement the strategy, and they need to get their entry-level employees to execute on the strategy, right? So if you look at this hierarchically, you'll be like, oh, Seibo's the guy in all the interviews. Seibo gets all the press. Like, he must be the most important. But in a holarchy, you realize, no, Seibo's just the dude that talks to investors, that talks to reporters. And this isn't shit without the mid-level managers or the entry-level workers. So instead of putting so much weight and emphasis at the top, you put an emphasis on keeping the whole holonic machine running smoothly. And if you think deeply about holons and holarchies, it's basically everything in this world is interconnected in some way. So if you don't look at things holonically, you may think, okay, hey, I recycle, I take out all the stuff, I do the composting and all this stuff, I'm woke and I'm environmental. But if you don't understand life holonically, is that you don't realize, hey, just supporting these companies that use excessive packaging is adding to the problem, right? Like, all of these things are interconnected. And the more we could look at the world holonically with holism, the better we can create systems where it's not a zero-sum game where everyone wins. So when I start looking at new technologies like NFTs or blockchain, like I see us going from achiever stage to a higher stage of consciousness. Why? Because we're decentralizing all the power. We're decentralizing the hierarchy. Now, where's the power? The power is everyone, right? The power is everyone. Now we have full transparency with blockchain, right? So I could see how technology is shifting that will allow us to move past this achiever stage of consciousness into a higher state of consciousness where the KPIs aren't just like margins and revenues or GDP, but the KPIs are like, hey, are your employees happy? Are your citizens happy? Right? So that's how I see it playing out.
I can't wait for the day that we just are uploading our consciousness to the blockchain. It's transparent. My soul is transparent on a distributed ledger on the blockchain. It's yeah, I mean, it's pretty crazy. So I would like to do that with my podcast, and I think that's what, like, any self-improvement or self-actualization like book or project or author, that's what they're all trying to achieve, is to help humanity kind of ascend this Maslow's hierarchy until the point that you realize, oh, maybe we didn't need a hierarchy. And like, that's what I want to do with this podcast, because I feel like also for me, the niche that I want to hit is being Asian diaspora, being a Korean American, Asian immigrant, Asian American, being the son of an immigrant, and also being an immigrant because I was actually born in Korea. So I went to America when I was 1.
Wow.
And so, like, I have like this, I'm fully American, and I became naturalized before I came to Korea. But like, I'm still not, I feel like I don't fit in anywhere, in the sense that, like, I'm not Ilse and I'm not Ise. I'm not first generation and I'm not second generation exactly, because I'm not like some other Korean Americans, a bunch of Korean Americans who were born and raised in America several generations, um, by 1 or 2 generations or 3. And then at the same time, like, I'm not Korean. So I always had this sense of like, okay, I technically wasn't born in America, so I don't feel like I can't say that I'm 100% American, because even by this legal status, which is just a piece of paper, but it's kind of important, I guess I'm not American. But America's all I know, and I never grew up in Asia, and blah 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 blah. So, like, and I don't even see many other Korean people. I just see some Chinese people and maybe the occasional Japanese American. But what is Korea? What does Korean mean? Okay, like, we speak a different language. We're not like a I'm not what kind of Asian am I, right? When people ask, what kind of Asian are you? Where are you from? Like, I'm from Korea, I guess, but I never was from there. And then my parents, dysfunctional family, parents yelling at each other, a lot of negative energy, a lot of trauma, emotional trauma from my parents' lives and stuff like that. To Like, this led to me having like a huge identity crisis, like, my whole life, that fed into, I believe, that fed into me hating myself and wishing I was anything but Asian and blah 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 blah. And me being like, I can't even ride a bike, I can't speak my mother tongue, I'm so held back, I'm so defective, why is life so unfair? I want to hit on all of these deep pain points where people feel like left behind, and accelerate to them and be like, no, you can do what you can ride a bike, you can learn how to swim, you can do a job, you can do the dishes, you can do chores, you can learn complex skills, and you can learn copywriting, which is what I'm doing now. You can do all these things, and you can get, yeah, you can get money, you can get success. If you want a relationship, right, you can do all these things. You know, yeah, you can get women, right? And like, you can play the field, you can sleep with lots of women, or just a few, or have a girlfriend, whatever it is that you want. You can just believe in yourself. So I feel all these things from a deep sense of like overcoming my inferiority complex, because I have this pain point. I want other people to heal from the pain, so that if we heal from this pain, listening to Mime Time, then we can accelerate our consciousness to the next level. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I love that. And, you know, what I heard was, you know, you're empowering yourself so that you could inspire other people to feel empowered. And, you know, like, I think of like the achiever stage as the empowerment stage, you know, and when I think about empowerment, it's like, I want to empower people to be able to hit their goals. Why? You know, it's as I spoke about earlier, is when you hit your goals, you feel good about yourself. But if you hit enough of your goals, you start realizing, whoa, like these goals are, it's kind of like just doing coke one night. Like you feel good for a little while, and then you got to do another line, right? It's like you're chasing goals, just chasing goals. So the next step I teach them is, okay, instead of empowerment, let's go into enlightenment mode. And what's enlightenment mode? If you guys listen to Sam Harris is a big fan of reframing, which is like, oh, okay, hey, I just got fired, and instead of being depressed, I'm going to reframe it and be like, I'm going to get my life together, and I'm going to make something of myself. So even getting fired is just kind of like a neutral experience, and you're just reframing things. So instead of changing the outside world to feel better, you just change your inside world to feel better. But I found that there's one level even above enlightenment. I like to call that the infinite mindset. And the infinite mindset doesn't really care about positive or negative experiences or even reframing anything. It's just experience is experience. There's a Korean American experience, there's an American experience, there's a Korean experience. And I believe at this level, like a lot of the suffering that we have is because of all these categories. And I was an Asian American studies major, so I very much was like super concerned about like Asian males, where we stood. And like when I so identified as an Asian male, I also picked up on all the traits of like what an insecure Asian male would have. And then I started going, wait, am I just fitting another standardization of like what a Korean American is, or a Chinese American, or a Chinese person? And so what I'm trying to get to here is that, like, yeah, all those stages of consciousness that I talked about are required, but ultimately, you know, just like Maslow talked about self-actualization, but there was one stage after that, which was, it just returns back into holism, is we're all part of the same thing. So it is important to delineate and understand the categories, but ultimately to find peace, you realize, and this is what all like the mystics have always said, we're just all one. Maybe you have black hair, maybe I have blonde hair, whatever, but we just all have human experiences.
Yeah, we just have human experiences. And I think personally this experience is awesome. And so I want to elucidate, I want to make that clear to everyone listening right now. Like, if you're able to listen to this conversation, you know, like, you're probably one of us, you know, and it doesn't matter if you're Asian or male or not, but if you can just understand these concepts, and if it gives you perspective, then you know, hopefully it gives you what you need at the time in your life. Or maybe this isn't what you need in your life, but maybe you'll remember and come back to it later. um and I think this period of time is the best period of time in human history. This is the greatest time in human history to be alive, in my opinion. And
Fuck
especially
yeah.
in the context of you know, our Asian heritage and our families and where they came from. You know, it's like I think of it as not, I'm not trying to be, not in an arrogant way, but as diaspora, we are at the cutting edge of human society and thought. I actually want to really put it out there that we are experiencing this Asian Renaissance worldwide. And what I mean is, especially for the diaspora, because especially as most of us, many of us that grow up in the West, right, whether it be Canada, America, or the UK, wherever you know, we learn English, we have experience, we have access to all these experiences and a whole body of knowledge from the Western developed world that our parents or their parents didn't have access to back in the motherlands, back in Korea or China or Japan. So we have so many more opportunities, you know, of course, based on the fact that maybe we speak a different language than our mother tongue, that we speak English. And so all the books, all the experiences and the connections that we can make being being diaspora, right? Growing up in another culture that's not like our parents or where we come from originally. I think we're at the cutting edge. I say, but when I look at you, I think like, damn, like if your ancestors 10,000 years ago or 100,000 years ago, wherever they were, right, wherever our Neanderthal ancestors were 100,000 years ago, and or 10,000, like I think about this, like 400, 500 years ago in the Chosun dynasty, like if they could look at me now, this English speaking Korean guy who's talking about identity and overcoming identity, like, and like having conversations with people around the world through a camera and the internet and Facebook groups and like having a website and doing all this, it would blow their minds. And I would think that so it would be is a psychedelic, insane dream that they could never even imagine this reality that I'm living right now, and the reality that the experiences that you've had, whether it's like all the mollies you've taken or all the exits you've had or whatever it is, all the amazing experiences you've had with your friends, like making all that money, losing all that money, all the things that you do, and then like listening to other people, helping out burnt out overachievers. If your great grandparents or their great grandparents could look at you, I would like to think that they'd be super blown away and they'd be super proud of themselves and of you, and that they would be humbled and proud of you. That's how I want to look at my life in the context of like my ancestors and the greater culture and the societies that we come from. So with like great pride and also great humility. And so that's what I want to do with this podcast, is really put it out there. Like, this is, if you're Asian and or a minority and you feel like, or if you feel like you're out of place, you don't have to be Asian diaspora, but if you feel like you're out of place, there's all this opportunity in this day and age. And ways to frame your mind and get perspective to change your life for the better. And so I'm just saying this because I wish someone had told me this when I was 10, when I was 15. I wish I could have been listening to this conversation 10 years ago. It would have changed my life. And
Yeah.
another
And
note,
thank you for that.
yeah, go ahead. Mhm.
Oh, no, you finish.
Oh, I just want to say this stupid joke, which is like, you mentioned doing something about, you do a line of coke and then you feel good for a bit, but then you have to do another, and then the next thing you know, you exit 6 companies. That's the joke I wanted to make.
Yeah, so man, I love what you said. There's so much in that. And the first thing that really resonated with me, you were like, hey, for the people that are listening, you're probably vibing with this, but if you're not vibing with this, you might remember this like in the future when it makes sense. So I really appreciate that, because my wife tells me I talk about esoteric shit all the time, and I never really even like know like if the audience is open to this stuff. And to be honest, like maybe 3 years ago, if I heard someone like me talking, I'd be like, that guy is just full of crap. He's full of shit. Like, he's just trying to sell like this easy lifestyle, but one of the things that I'm a big believer that experience is the best teacher. So when I heard about like this lifestyle of like manifesting stuff or just doing what you wanted, like I wanted to see if that was possible. So I stepped down as a CEO and just started following my path. And I had known that I finished the achiever stage. So like, I didn't need to, it wasn't me like running away from being a CEO. And ultimately what I've kind of learned and what I wanted to share with you was like my coaching career got off to a really great start, but there's definitely been ups and downs. And a lot of the down moments, like I needed to have those. I needed to be humbled. I needed to have like additional insight, because for a while it was like everything that I was doing, it felt like, whatever I touched turned to gold, and in many ways I had clients who couldn't do that, so when I see like even my own failures, like I realize, oh, this allows me to hold space for a client that has failed at manifesting a lot of things. And because I failed at a lot of things, they believe I could help them turn it around, because if I was always great at stuff, they'll probably think, oh, well, of course, LeBron James is good at basketball. Look at him. He's always been like super tall for his age and hyper coordinated. He didn't need to work hard, right? So by having a lot of these like down moments, or like yourself, it's like, hey, I wish I heard this 10 or 15 years ago, right? So for other people that wish like they grew up sooner or woke up sooner, like you'll have stories to share with them later that's like, yeah, it doesn't really matter when you hear it. It's you hear it when you need to hear it. Look, like if someone's just coming out of college, hearing about the Chillionaire lifestyle is absolutely the worst thing that they could think of or be exposed to. They're gonna not want to go to work. They're not gonna want to have a tough job, but going to work and working for an asshole employer and like being put your feet to the fire, like there's so many lessons about growing up, about being responsible, about being accountable, about visualizing something you want and putting in effort to get it that you can't get if you just want to be a Chillionaire. So for me, like I often thought about you as like, well, I was burnt out 3 years ago. I should have quit being a CEO 3 years ago. But I also realized that when I'm working with burnt out overachievers and they know that I ran 3 companies for 3 years longer than I needed to, they know I know exactly how they feel.
Mhm.
Had I not had that experience, they just might be like, oh, well, Seibo's just saying move on. But when has he, ran a company and when has he, suffered for this long? So to me, all of these things, like, I don't want to sound like a hippie too much, but like, I believe life unfolds itself, gives you access to certain information when you're ready for it. So like me and you connected over that book, right? And now we're having this awesome conversation and I'm growing from it, learning about the diaspora. You're growing it from it, just learning about whatever I've been talking about, right? And we're helping each other evolve our consciousness. But if there's one thing I could share with your audience, for me, is to always remember when you're trying to race through things, like life isn't about being the fastest. Like whenever I see like people like try to be the best, it's like, yeah, you're the fastest dude on the treadmill because where are you going? Like, what is different if you have a better car or have a better job? Like what is actually different about your life? If it's just the same life and you have more things for yourself and that makes you happy, well, great. But for most people that are accomplished and not feeling great, it's that they need to start realizing that their experience of the world is actually generated from the inside out and not the outside in. But it's hard to live an inside out lifestyle if you haven't mastered the outside world. So the way I try to explain it is you can't master the metaphysical world if you haven't mastered the physical world just yet.
That's deep. That's deep and hard. That's some hard truth. Yeah, and I'm just thinking, about like the context of our conversation and our past in life because can I how old are you now, Sabu?
I'm 45.
45. Damn, looking good, man. Looking
Thank you.
good. It's like I would just I mean, I w- I know I figured I remember you're in your 40s, but like you just I don't know, you just look so good. You just
Thank you.
yes, you
I'll
look
tell you
like
my
you're
secret.
oh yeah?
Can I tell you my secret?
Yeah,
Okay.
please tell me a
So
secret.
I think Asian parents and even Caucasian parents typically tell their kids, think before you speak, right? So there's a lot of like, you should think, thinking is a great thing. So one of the things that I realized, especially when I started meditating, was your conscious brain could process 40 bits of data per second. Your subconscious could process 20 million bits of data per second. So it's a 500,000x increase in processing power. So why is this important? Well, most people are constantly thinking about what are the problems and obstacles in my life that I need to overcome to become happy. And when you're using a slow processor that's clunky, like you're just kind of rerunning the same scenarios in your head. So they say humans have 70,000 thoughts per day. 90% of what you think about is the same as yesterday, and 70% of your aggregate thoughts are negative thoughts. So it makes sense that most people are anxious and concerned because they're thinking about the same anxious thoughts every day. And stress is the number one thing that makes you older. So for me, I meditate 90 minutes a day. And when people say, why do you meditate 90 minutes a day? Like, don't you have to do stuff? Don't you have to accomplish things? And I go, well, when I meditate 90 minutes a day, I don't have to think the rest of the day. I'm just doing stuff. Everything is
Oh my
processed
god.
in those 90 minutes. There's no wondering. There's no like like did I do good enough? I should have did that. I would have done that. I could have done this. It's just all process. So I have full focus on what I need to do. There's no questions, and I just execute. And when you execute without distractions, an 8-hour day, a 16-hour day becomes a 3-hour day. But I wouldn't be able to do this if I didn't go through the achiever stage. It's because I went through the achiever stage. I understand how the world works. I understand how to get shit done. But I've released myself from the standardization covenant of it needs to be done at this speed or at this quality level. It's I do it on my terms. And when I live on my terms, I attract the right people in my life. I create the things that those people want. And yeah, basically manifest anything. And so for me right now, the next stage is not even actively manifesting things. It's just meditating, receiving signals. So instead of achieving, I just receive now. So everything that you see me type, like online, all my copyright and things of that nature, I don't consciously think about any of it. You could ask my wife. I just meditate and I come out of it and my fingers just do some magic shit and posts come out and I get new clients. So now I'm no longer manifesting. I'm just a vessel. And by being a vessel and completely aligned, I get everything that I want without even having to ask for it.
Damn, that is fucking amazing. Yeah, that's right. Everyone, you heard it here. Seibo Shen, he's not thinking about it at all. He's not thinking, no thoughts. He's just a vessel for the universe. Some people are like, well, he's not thinking. What does that mean? Like, I want people to think, it's such a different paradigm. It's a different paradigm. And the thing is, man, there's so much that I want to get at here. But it's like I earlier, it kind of blew my mind a bit when you put it that way. I did all my thinking, right? Or like I did all that in the 90 minutes. Like depending on who you talk to and where you at your life, like meditation, closing your eyes for 5, 10, 90 minutes, like it'll serve different purposes for different times. Like I'm going through a different paradigm for meditation. For some people, it's like, oh, it's something practical. I need to go into Cal Newport deep work focus mode. So it serves a very practical purpose of me focusing on my breath so that I have more focus, focus, power, energy, green meter, right? Like in the Matrix, when you play the Matrix game, like in order to focus, right, you go slow-mo and you dodge the bullets and you're able to hit targets, select all the target, highlight them and go pow, 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 pow to take out the enemies. That's what meditating does for 30 minutes, right? It'll charge your focus meter so that when it comes to the day's task, like you need to do this, you need to send this email, you need to write out this paper, you go pow, 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 pow. So that's like the practical paradigm of meditation and focus. But then there's like the healing, psychological, emotional, like, oh, like think about your parents or think about your past and then deal with that trauma and hug your inner child and tell them that everything's okay and that you love them, all that shit, right? That's a different paradigm for meditation. But that also blows this just blows my mind. You just kind of gave me like another paradigm. It's like, oh, I get how do you get shit done? Don't you have things to do? Yeah. That's why I meditate. It's like that. They say, oh, who has time for prayer? Who has time to pray to God? Right. It's just like I'm too busy to pray to God. And then some Christians will say, well, that's what you need God even more. You need to pray even more. The busiest people need to pray even more. Right. And so that's just that's a Christian lens of saying, if you're really busy and you're really like chunction up, so like you're really scatterbrained and stuff, and you think you don't have time for meditation, that's a sign that you would benefit even more from it. So, yeah. So I mean, this is dope and this is amazing. And so I wanted to what I wanted to say earlier about again, the context of this conversation is that like I see where you're at and I see where I'm at on the path. And I know that if I was listening to this conversation right now, when I was say 15 or 10 years ago, I would have looked at us two talking, like, let's say we're on stage right now, or we're on this video. If I were like my 20-year-old self or my 16-year-old self looking and listening to this conversation, I would see Mime as looking at Seibo, and I would be able to see that Mime is trying to be like Seibo, but I would be happy and I would be like so fulfilled just to be who Mime is today. Like if I was 20-year-old Mime or 15-year-old Mime looking at who I am right now, talking to you, Seibo, I'd be like, oh man, if I could be half of what Mime is now, looking at this YouTube video or whatever, or listening to this podcast, like, oh, like that would be so beyond my wildest dreams. Like, oh my God, like I'm making someone of myself. I've overcome my like fears and my traumas and blah, 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 blah. But even mime's trying to get to the next level or be some like trying to ascend right to the level of Seibo. And then so what I want to tell the listeners here is like I'm like nobody, you know, like I'm just like you, dear listeners. Like you can see me wanting to aspire or kind of maybe ascend to the level that Seibo is, but then the listeners who are watching or listening to this right now might be like, man, I'd be happy to just be like halfway that mime is, right? Not saying that like I'm fucking great or anything. Um, but just that I know what I would think what kind of mindset I was like. So I'm just saying, if you're listening to this, like I look at you, Seibo, right now, and like you're talking about 90 minutes a day. I do 30 minutes a day. So I just need to add 60 more minutes to my day and I'll be a chillionaire just like you. I'm half joking there. But I see that as a measure. Like now that I just saying that, I feel like I'm kind of like there's no way to quantify this, but maybe like I'm a third of the way towards you because and I'm going through the achiever stage right now. Because like I just quit my job, right? So I mean, I'm still working until the end of next month, but then from April, I'll either stop completely or I will just work like 1 hour a week at that job. But otherwise, I set my own schedule. Like I set my own quote unquote 4 hour work week, except I'll be working as much as I want to, doing free time copywriting consulting. And then it's like I can live that digital nomad lifestyle. You know, obviously I got bills to pay, but I don't need a lot, just $1,000 a month, right? And like I've got a bunch of student loan debt back in America that I want to take care of. So like I'm not completely, you know, free in a way, but I know that I'll be able to do it. So I'm not that far off from having that freedom and that independence. I know that I have what it takes to get there. So like I'm on this cusp, right? So I'm getting there. And so I just want to say to the listeners, like, if you want that, I'm no better or different or unique than you are. I mean, obviously I do think I'm a special snowflake, but I want to inspire and I want to bring it out there that like, you just have to believe in yourself. And that's what that book that you and I connected on recently is about, Psycho-Cybernetics. It's about, and that's why I'm doing these 30-minute visualizations, is because it's about manifestation. Like I'm imagining myself being on a tropical beach paradise, which I've done before, with like imagining I'm going there with like my best friend and my girlfriend. And then I imagined it in the coldest winter of Seoul, like in 2019 winter. And then by after New Year's in 2020, before all this COVID shit, like my girlfriend and my best friend, you know, my childhood best friend, we were on a beach in Boracay. Like in that, for me, that was manifesting. Other people are like, well, yeah, you planned it, but I'm just like, no, like I really wanted that. And my subconscious guided me towards that reality. And same with like learning Korean, or same with like learning money, like everything. And just manifesting like, oh, my time is worth $50 an hour. Just believing that, just be like, I can become the person. I believe that I can become the person who values his time and is efficient enough and provides enough value to the world that I can earn $50 an hour. 2 days later, I get a gig that basically I negotiated up to pay me $50 an hour. That was a month ago.
Yeah.
And then I posted on my page less than 2 weeks ago, you know, like experiment, like I'm gonna charge who wants to give me $100 per hour to do some copywriting for them, whatever it is, emails or website copy, blah, blah, $100 per hour. If you don't like it, you pay me upfront, but if you don't like it, then after a month, if you don't generate at least $101 in revenue or more, then I will refund you. That post changed my life. Because of that, I got so many leads. Shout out to Chris Kim. He also said he would hire me. So still need to follow up on that. But just that. And like, I talked to some other people, like, and they paid me. I closed a deal at the beginning of last week, and because of that deal, I can stop working my other job that I've been working for 8 years. So this is an immense period of transition for me. This is so critical for me, and I'm just really putting out there, like, if you're listening to this right now, it's possible. It's possible. I'm living it right now. Psycho-Cybernetics. You got to believe in yourself. You got to. Yeah, it's changing my life, because I heard that I watched some YouTube video. This guy, he said that this Psycho-Cybernetics shit, it works. Just manifest just for 21 days. Just take 20-30 minutes. Imagine yourself with a perfect body or whatever it is that you want, perfect personality. You're reliable, you're disciplined, and you provide, you know, people love you for who you are and all this shit. Just, I'm rephrasing it my own way, but like, I see myself manifesting towards maybe like some sort of similar plane where you are, where you don't already went through the achiever stage. I'm going through my achiever stage, and I'm telling other people right now, it's fucking dope. This where I am right now, I'm really grateful to be here. And so I want to just hammer it home again. Like if I'm no better than you, whoever's listening to this or watching this, and some people are like, yeah, mime, I make more money than you. Or like, oh yeah, I gotten laid a bunch of times. Yes, mime, I know that I'm better than you. Then this isn't for you. But but to people who feel like they have nothing of value to offer the world, that they don't have opportunities, like you gotta, it's cliche, and then maybe I need to put more cooler, unique ways of saying it, but you got to believe in yourself. You can believe in yourself. I believe in you. If no one's saying it right now, no one has ever told you, I believe in you. If you're listening to this, just by virtue of that fact, I believe in you. If you can understand what we're saying, then you have everything that it takes. I believe in you 100%. So I know
I loved what you said.
Sorry, Seibo.
Yeah, I loved what you said. And, I love that you were on your soapbox about that. And, I think what stood out to me was, you talked about like, you felt like you manifested that beach vacation, but someone was like, no, you just set a goal and you hit it. And yeah, so I think, like for the people listening to me talk, they might think like, yeah, when I talk about manifestation, there's like some like weird spiritual component to it. But for me, the definition of manifestation is consciously creating the future that you want, consciously creating the future that you want. And yeah, visualization is important. Doing work in the 3D world is important. So when I talk about like creating things through me and just being a vessel, like I'm not like a vessel that's just meditating and doing nothing. It's like the vessel has to get up and get in the car and make deliveries and write stuff. And like, so there's still a lot of things being done in the 3D world. So that's the one thing that I really want to kind of like make sure like the audience understands is like, yeah, we might be talking about some metaphysical things, but there's still stuff that you need to do in the physical world in order to manifest your dreams and make them a reality.
Yeah, and a great resource like psycho-cybernetics. It's great because it's based on like scientific data and studies, and so it's not like some abstract woo stuff. Like it's written by a plastic surgeon named Dr. Maxwell Maltz, who published this book in 1960 because he realized after operating on patients who had scars or some disfigurement, some patients, like after they had the surgery, they would still feel ugly or they would still feel a certain way. And that's when he realized, aha, we have some sort of psychological inner self-image, the elusive self-image. And he was able to tease that out. He was a person who worked in the 3D real world. I mean, what's realer than like, like knives and flesh, right? What's realer than that? That's science, right? That's hard knife, right? Cutting human flesh and skin. What's realer than that? Here's a real doctor with real life experience, working his business, working with people, working with flesh and blood, making money, and he had the time and the inspiration to write a book called Psycho-Cybernetics, right? Psycho meaning psychology, the soul, suke, right? And then cybernetics meaning the helmsman who steers the ship to port. And what is that port? He says peace of mind. And so like we can, and it's innate to all of us, this automatic success mechanism. It's just the way that your body knows how to adjust and calibrate as your arm moves to pick up a pen. So your mind has the same mechanism in order to achieve a certain goal, to go somewhere. And we just have to access that through the power of the subconscious and how we feel about ourselves, right? Exactly what you said earlier. Our conscious mind can process this tiny amount, this many bits of information, but the subconscious is like infinitely times more powerful than that. And so we need to tap into that subconscious by really believing in ourselves, and then everything else will fall in place. Like, I want to respect your time here because I know we're past the hour, but I just want to say one thing is that I this again, Seibo, like there's so much I could talk about and so much I want to ask you too, but yesterday was such a big milestone for me because like I spent like 4 or 5 hours, not last night, but the night previous. So it's Wednesday daytime here. So Monday night going into early Tuesday morning, I was up till the 7 a.m. It's like, that feeling where like up until 1 or 2 a.m. you have to fulfill all these tasks, but then there's something that's of immense importance, like someone's getting on a plane in like less than 24 hours. So you need to prepare these documents now, and you need to do some boring ass paperwork in another language that's difficult for you because you have all this trauma. So I spent like 4 or 5 hours, tired, all caffeinated yesterday morning from like 2 to 6 or 7 a.m. And then but I did it. I got the boring work done, the boring work that no one else could do. Um, I put that responsibility on myself and I did it. And then I went to present the paperwork to the person who I needed to, and then I went to an office to get it notarized. And then the company, the notary office was like, "Hey, sorry, but like this copy, like we can't notarize this. So you need to like go. Also, this thing, you're missing this part of the document. Like they need to sign here, not there, that kind of thing, right?" But then, so a part of me, in the past, I would have been like, "Oh man, like after all that work, you know." It didn't. I spent all these hours. You know what I mean? That you do that thing, and then you go to this office, and like, but I had a sense of peace this time. I was just like, oh, I did well because practically I did most of the work, so it's not as big of a deal to fix up these. I did most of the work, but then yesterday I had so much, like I felt this peace, like, oh my god, I can get anything done if I needed to. I'm reliable. I get the shit done. I do the boring work. And I thought I could never become this kind of person who's this, who can adults like this, who can be this responsible. But I'm just like, I'm better than anybody because no one else that I know is willing to take it this far. And I'm nobody, but I'm able to do it. And so yesterday I gave myself the biggest pat on the back. So I just want to put that home.
Yeah, I love
Like,
that. I
I'm
love that.
manifesting it.
And yeah, I love that. And, I would caution yourself on just using that language like I'm a nobody, because I know it's a
Fair enough.
very kind of like self-deprecating a way to say things, but ultimately, you say things enough and they start coming true. And ultimately, like, I mean, I know you're trying to be very aspirational, but like, I don't see you as a nobody. I would never call myself a nobody, even though there have been times in interviews I've said I'm like a nobody. I just make vaporizers, right? But ultimately, like, you're proud of yourself. So, and
Yes.
everyone listening, they're not nobodies either. We're all somebody here to contribute to the 3D world. And ultimately, we all have to find our own path. Like someone, um like the person that wrote this book, the fact that he was like a doctor, that would appeal to someone like me because that type of authority like makes sense to me. Like he did shit in the 3D world. Now someone that's been meditating on the top of a mountain, like they've been saying the same thing. We're capable of doing anything. Like you could do anything that you put your mind to, but I don't resonate with that. So to me, it's not about like what's the best way to do something. It's just about being yourself, talking about the things that are interesting to you, and the people that need to hear it, like what you say will resonate with them at the core. The people that don't care what you say, it probably just sounds like I'm some dude that did way too many mushrooms and too many lines of coke and is like in this other interdimensional like world and just like spitting out gobbledygook, but that's the beauty of humanity, in my opinion, is that like there's such a wide range of like different ways to live a fulfilling life. And for me, like it's very simple. It's, does the way you think put you in your head and stress you out, or does the way you think put you in flow and allow you to navigate the world without always constantly like worrying, stressing, and wondering? And whatever allows you to get into that mindset, do that. Like for my wife, she loves planning everything, and not just planning everything, but having a plan B and a plan C. And if she does that, she feels good. Now, for me, I'm the opposite. I just want like 3 bullet points. Like, where are we going? What time are we leaving? And then I'll figure out everything from there. And so what puts me in flow is the exact opposite of what puts her in flow. So for me, it's never about like telling you like how to do things. It's always about just helping you find your own truth. And if finding this, like what you said about this book, like who knows, if you found it 10 or 15 years ago, you might not have been at a consciousness level to even receive it. You might
Fair
just think
enough.
it's like bullshit.
Yep.
And that's why to me, like there's never ever going back and going like, I wish I learned this sooner, because ultimately, like I told you, like my friends that took the spiritual path right out of college, the ones that like couch surf on my sofa every few months, it's like they were trying to bypass the achiever stage, just get to the top as quickly as possible because they felt like that was the path. And by rushing through things, they missed out on so much. So to me, it's not about rushing through things. It's just about experiencing life as deeply as possible. And if your ideology or a mindset allows you to experience life at a deep level, keep doing that. If it doesn't, then try something different. There's no one end all be all fix. And as a coach, I wish there was, but that's why it's hard for me to do group coaching, because I know that everyone is so individualistic, and I can come up with an easier framework for me to make money. But ultimately, will my clients have the efficacy of like personalized conversations? So for me, like I do a mix of group coaching, which is for people that don't have the amount of money to do one-on-one coaching. But I also understand that like, look, like giving someone a framework is one thing, but giving someone like every single tool that is specific for them to optimize their life and helping them discover their own tools, that is when you could fish for yourself. And ultimately, I think we all want to get to a point where we don't have to like turn on a podcast to raise our consciousness. We can just do the things that we know that bring us joy and fulfillment in our life, and that will raise our consciousness.
Yes, become the podcast, as it were. Yeah. Yeah, you don't realize. Yeah, it's like we gotta. I mean, maybe that's kind of where I'm doing. It's like, oh, I spent 10 years listening to podcasts, so now I became a consumer. Now I'm a producer, and maybe I'll come to a point where I'll keep producing until like I've become mime time, and I don't need to produce anymore, or whatever. But yeah, I just want to encourage anyone listening to this to manifest that flow state to get to where they want. Flow state, yes, flow state your destiny. So. Seibo, if people want to reach out to you or they're curious or they want to follow you, like how should we funnel them your way? How would you like them to
Yeah,
reach?
the easiest way to find me, Instagram, YouTube, or TikTok. It's all at Chillionaire Coach. Yeah, that's the best way to find me. And if anyone wants to email directly, it's seibo@seiboknows.com. My website is seiboknows.com, but Chillionaire Coach seems to be a little bit easier for people to remember.
Awesome. And is there anything, any parting words you'd like to share with the guests? Share
I
with
think
the
my
audience.
parting words. Yeah, I think my parting words would be, number one, thank you, Mime, for allowing me to interact and speak with you. Number two is I think you're exactly in the place that you need to be. Number three is for the people listening, if this piques your curiosity, keep investigating. If it doesn't pique your curiosity, that's okay. Just kind of like file this away, and maybe in the future if something comes up where some of this like conversation may be helpful, then bring it out of the files and just live. Just live. It's okay to just live. You don't always have to be an A+ player. There's nothing wrong with being average, and following your passions to learn about yourself is a great methodology. And it's okay to follow your passions even if it doesn't make money, because look, one of the things that I've come to realize is my passion was video games when I was younger. Like I always wished like there was like a way to make money off of video games. And everyone told me, like you could never make money playing video games. And now esports are bigger than sports. And the same thing with cannabis. I was always like, I love smoking weed. How can I make money? Well, I don't want to go to jail and be a weed dealer. And everyone was just like, that's a pipe dream. And here I am, like society changes. So what I'm saying here is, just stick with your passions. Cultivate it, and figure out a way to monetize the things that you love doing. And that's a great way to navigate life, by just being able to do more things that you like, getting good at them because you're engaged with what you're doing. And then just with a little bit of strategy, figure out how to monetize the things that you're good at. And to me, and sorry for like kind of getting on my soapbox here, is like, look, when I think about like I've never taken an engineering class in my life, and I'm horrible at math, yet I created arguably the world's best vaporizer. We won High Times Vaporizer of the Year 5 years in a row. So like, how was I able to do this? Well, I realized I just love weed so much, I was willing to learn about math and engineering. And then so if you think about my coaching, it's like I don't have an ICF or CCF certification. I don't have any clinical experience or a therapeutic experience. Like I don't have anything other than myself, but I do have a high affinity for understanding human psychology. So to me, 10,000 hours are required if you're doing something that you don't like to do to master. That's why it's 10,000 hours. So motivation, grit, all of these things. Why do you need them? It's because society wants you to do things that you don't want to do. So you got to be motivating yourself. You got to be gritty. Motivating is like pushing yourself. Inspired is like just being pulled. It's like if you have to motivate yourself to work out at 6 a.m., you probably don't want it enough. But if you're waking up at 5:55 a.m. before your alarm clock goes off, you know you're inspired to do those work. So when you could come from inspiration, like you could get to black belt level like super quick. Like I'm not going to say how much money I make as a coach, but I know that I make more money than 99% of the coaches out there. And it's because, like, did I go to as many classes or schools as them? No, but this wasn't like, I mean, I'm not going to shit on life coaches, but a lot of life coaches I know, they didn't make it in other areas. So they thought, hey, I could do this and make some good money and have flexibility. So if you think about that person who's in class trying to learn about this, and then you think about me, a guy that ran 3 companies, but would still read like an hour to 2 hours of psychology books after working a 16-hour day, like how long would it take for me to catch up to these coaches? Not a long period of time. It took me 7 months. So it took me 7 months. So like, this is why I always tell people, like, it doesn't matter if you're not good at something. If you find something you like, even if you're not good at it in the beginning, your affinity, your engagement with it will push you through and you will get good at it. And it won't take 10,000 hours. And that's why I was able to drop out of law school, get into tech, drop out of tech, get into cannabis, drop out of cannabis, get into coaching. And yeah, right now I'm learning to be a farmer too. So I may drop out of coaching and just farm full time. It doesn't really matter to me. Like I could play life like a video game because I do the things that I want. So that's my last message. Do the things that you like, go through the achiever stage and live the Chillionaire lifestyle.
Yeah, and then the next thing you know, you could just transition into another paradigm, which I wish I would talk more about paradigms, but yeah, you could be farming weed again, and then you go back to the vaporizer, so it comes full circle. Who knows?
Absolutely. And if anyone's watched Lion King, you know that there is a circle of life. And, in many ways, the things that I'm doing right now are the simple things that I used to do as a kid, which is put my hands in the dirt, garden, do stuff like that. So yeah, I could totally see, the cyclical nature of this. So, and yeah, and if I haven't thanked you already for allowing me to come on here and speak, I just wanted to thank you for being gracious with your time and inviting me to your show.
Seibo, I can't thank you enough for your time. This means the world to me. This is so fucking cool. I really, really appreciate you coming on here. This is really, really awesome. This is like my dream come true. It's just like me having this amazing conversation with someone who I really admire and respect and want to be like on my show so that I can help other people like, become the best version of themselves and to self-actualize on their journeys. Like this, there's nothing more I could ask for. So everyone, if you didn't know already, Seibo knows. And thank you for listening, Mime Timers. Yes, and if you got something out of this, please hit up Seibo or please hit me up and let me know what you think. Any feedback would be really appreciated as always. And if anyone you think would get something out of this, please share it with them. It might change their lives and we could all maniflow states our way towards transcendence at our own due time. So thank you so much, Seibo. And thank you, everyone. Maniflow state.
You are awesome.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Hey,
all right.
you know what, Mime? And anytime you want me back, let me know. Anytime you want to talk offline, I'm there for you, brother, because I see what you're doing. I see how much like you're coming from such a good place, so your intention is there. And when I see people coming from a good place, I can't help but, admire the energy and want to help out.
Thank you so much, Seibo. I'll take you up on that hard.
Yeah. Awesome.
All right. Thanks for listening, everybody. Tune in next time. Peace.